All right, we finished up our series on pride. Hopefully it made us aware of pride and how it works. One of the dangers of pride is that when we don't deal with pride, it's left unresolved when in an unguarded moment or the heat of the moment, we're in a relationship and next thing we know our pride is coming up, we've caught ourselves overreacting. Next thing we know we've got World War III going. So an unresolved pride can turn into unhealthy conflict. So I feel like we've been starting a kind of a new series. I'm not going to go real deep into it about conflict resolution, about how to resolve conflicts in a healthy way that will build up the kingdom and not tear it down. How many of you just love conflict? How many of you love confrontation? I think one of the most difficult parts for me is being in ministry is learning to deal with confrontation and conflict in situations. I always say ministry would be great if it wasn't for people. Me and the Lord do pretty good until we bring people into it. But people are my business, and so whether I like it or not, it's part of being a pastor, and my job is to teach people how to deal with things in a healthy way and resolve things, and rather than give the devil victory and allow him to win, and we can turn it right around, and what the devil means for evil, we can take conflict and overreaction and unresolved issues and flip it around, and if we'll take responsibility and ownership, then it can turn out to be a win-win situation, can it? So the point is, we're going to have conflict. Even Paul says in 2 Corinthians 7:5, he says, "For even when we came into Macedonia, our flesh had no rest." How many of you feel like sometimes it's just like, man, this is like one thing after another. If it's not people and life, it's my own stuff. And it seems like there's no rest. We deal with one conflict here, we resolve when we say praise the Lord, and the next thing we know we got another one. And it's always like our flesh. Our flesh is always looking for a way to express itself. You quit smoking cigarettes, you start drinking. You start drinking, you quit drinking, you start eating. And it's always something. It's like a waterbed. It springs a leak, and you patch it here, and it just springs up again here. So Paul's basically saying that even he understands that his flesh is always being worked on. There's no rest. It says refers to all of him, whoever was with him. It says we were afflicted on every side, or oppressed in every way. Afflicted on every side, or at every single turn. Conflicts without, fears within, or contentions without, and dread and fears within. So Paul says that he's talking about every day, all the time. There's always conflict. Conflicts without. He's always dealing with probably his staff, or he's dealing with his own church or his own people, or dealing with demons or just things. And so he says there's external conflicts always going on, but then there's internal conflicts. Not only am I having to work on everybody else, but I'm also having to work with me. How many of you know being a pastor, especially and being a leader, is a dual role? I'm an undone man dealing with undone people. And so as much as I'm constantly trying to help other people with their issues and deal with their things, at the same time, I'm an unfinished project. I'm still a work in progress, and I have to deal with my own stuff. And that's a real bummer. And so for me to be able to help other people, I've got to get healthy and stay healthy and take care of my issues. So if I'm dealing with people in overreaction, what good's it going to do if I'm in reaction? So I've got to deal with myself in a healthy way. Learn to recognize and see things, take ownership and take them to the Lord and journal and get better. So So conflict is going to happen. It's not if it happens, it's when it happens. How are we going to deal with it? Are we going to deal with it in a healthy way or an unhealthy way? An unhealthy way destroys the kingdom and tears down people, but in a healthy way can edify the situation. Instead of escalating a situation, we can de-escalate a situation, and we can be peacemakers. I mean, you know, the Bible talks about the Beatitudes, and it says, blessed are the peacemakers. What that says, right, is that God gives special favor and blessings on people that are able to, don't mind getting their hands dirty. That they're able to get in the middle of people and be, what do they call a person that helps, an arbitrator or? Mediator, there you go. Jesus said, man, blessed are those people that are able to get into a situation and not escalate it, but de-escalate it. They can take two people and be a mediator and say, hey, let's work through this. You know, I could probably never be a marriage counselor. I can't even imagine that. And matter of fact, I don't even do it, and I don't even do much a lot of counseling anyway. But I can't imagine. You know, I can't hardly even date real good. You know what I'm saying? It's like I haven't even learned how to take care of the plant yet. You know, or the dog or the goldfish. Much less than a date. Oh well. Anyway, you know, people that are peacemakers, that they're able to bring peace and harmony. The situations are blessed people that are highly favored, but it's a difficult thing. But we're all called to be peacemakers, aren't we? Matter of fact, one of the things we need to know about conflict is that God is a relational God. God is all about relationships. God in the Trinity decided He was going to create man in His own image, made man on the planet in His image. And He made them to be able to express His love and to have a relationship with people. Have intimacy. Call it koinonia. Fellowship is, the word for fellowship is the Greek word koinonia. It means to have healthy dynamics of two people, not just living in a house. I mean, you can be married for 30 years and not have much of a marriage. Are you with me? You can work next to a person in the cubicle and be there 30 years and you have a work relationship, but you're not in a relationship with them. You don't even know who their kids. You never take any time. And you know, we can be around people all day but not be in a relationship. But God wants to have a relationship with us. He wants intimacy. He wants to have those dynamics where He can relate to each other. Key to relationship is intimacy. Allowing people to see into us, being vulnerable, willing to be hurt, and take chances and to get into relationship. So God is all about relationships, and the devil knows God's all about relationships. So when God created Adam and Eve for a relationship, what did He do first? He went after that institution, didn't He? He went after to break up what good. God created everything good, so the devil's goal is to pervert it and make everything evil. He always takes everything and messes it all up. So here you got Adam and Eve running around, you know, probably the most awesome specimens of maleness and womanhood, and beautiful people running around naked. They're not self-conscious. They can have a relationship with God. And can you just imagine the relationship they had? They walked in the cool of the day with God, the creator of the universe, came down and had a relationship with Him. And so we know the devil went after that relationship, and he broke up Adam and Eve. Next thing you know, he went after Cain and Abel, and Cain killed his brother. Then before long, the whole earth was corrupt. Everything that was going on the earth was evil all the time, and He brought Noah along and destroyed the whole mess because it was just a bunch of busted up, broken relationships. Can you imagine? Everybody was out for themselves. Not just Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but all the time, every day. Everything was evil. All totally different than the way God created it. And so Matthew 12:25 says that any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste. Any city or house divided against itself will not stand. So the devil knows that. So he's out to destroy relationships by causing division. The devil loves to divide a husband and wife. He loves to get the kids up against the parents. He loves to get leaders squabbling over each other. He loves to get people in the congregation offended at the pastor, or ladies in the ladies group offended at the female leader. You know, and he's always trying to divide. He loves to divide people up in factions because he knows once he gets them broken up, then he can conquer them. One of the beautiful things about the Tower of Babel is that everybody got along. You know what I'm saying? And God took notice. He said, man, these people are getting, how many of you ever heard say, boy, why can't we just all get along? The song says, why can't we be friends? Who sang that song anyway? Why can't we be friends? Nobody? Anyway, but there was a time at the Tower of Babel where everybody was in unity, everybody worked together, and they were accomplishing great supernatural things, and God looked down and saw it was a good thing, but he realized potentially that it would keep things from spreading and growing and promoting the overall plan to be fruitful and multiply the earth, so he broke it up. Even, I think in Amos it says, how can two people walk together unless they're in agreement? Amos says, you don't have to so much like each other or agree with everything, but if you're going to walk together, if you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to have to learn to compromise. You're going to have to say, okay, I care about you enough, and I hope you care enough about me. We got to learn to work together. And if God puts two people together, He can work it out. I was a best man in a wedding here. I've been in like 14 best man weddings, but I've never been the groom, you know. But I remember the pastor talking about them and asked them about, y'all are together and how's this going to work and all that. And he basically says, y'all aren't going to be able to do this. And it's like everybody's like, what? I mean, it could work, but he said the only way this relationship's ever going to work is if you keep God in the center of it. A cord of 3 strands can't easily be broken. You're going to have conflict. You're going to have issues. You're going to have to learn how to work together. You're going to have to learn to when you have a conflict, you're going to have to stop and go over here and get into and take ownership of your stuff. And she's going to have to take ownership of her stuff. And then you're going to have to come back together and say, okay, I learned this, let's move forward. Let's put this behind us. Let's don't let the devil get this thing. Let's move forward. Let's build up the kingdom. And instead they go to they go over here and it's all about them, and this person's saying it's all about them, and then you've got a Mexican standoff and nobody gets anywhere. Is that true? Yeah. The devil's over there going, and you don't even realize that he's the one that just messed everything up. So 2 Corinthians 5:18 says God has given us the ministry of reconciliation. He's given us the responsibility to be reconciled in our relationships. Romans 12:18 says, if possible, as far as it depends on you, be at peace or have harmony with all men in every single relationship. So, I mean, sometimes you just can't get in a relationship. Even Paul and Barnabas had to separate. But, I think down the road they ended up coming back together or whatever. But they had to, there come a point where, they had to go their own ways to maintain the relationship. And sometimes that happens, but on our end, my responsibility is that if I've made messes and I'm a part of things, that on my end, I can't worry about them, but on my end, I need to do everything I can to have that relationship restored and to do what you can. And sometimes you can go and you can offer that, but they may not want that. But on my end, I need to pray and ask the Lord, what do I need to do on my end, if anything? And most all the time you do have something on your end. What can I do to bring peace and harmony to this situation? So it's not okay to have broken relationships. It breaks God's heart, and we need to try to do what we can to make peace with all men. So tonight I want to talk about responding versus reacting. Everybody kind of looking at me. I think this is a very important message here, okay? There's been many wars and divorces. So many things happen over just misunderstandings, and so many things happen in the unguarded moments, the heat of the moment, where we get hooked, we get caught up in reaction. we say things and do things that we really didn't mean, but next thing you know, your pride's up and you know, that thing's come up in you, and next thing you know, it's on. Have you ever been there before? It's on. And you know the whole time it's on, you know I'm sinning, but you just can't get out of that reaction. Am I the only one? And you're laying there at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, and you're going over the tapes, and you're playing them over and over again and saying, what did they say, and what did I say, and how did I do it, how could I handle it better? And, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, they're sound asleep. They ain't even worried about you no more. And here you're all up in your head, in reaction, angry. You're ready to put your clothes on at 3 o'clock in the morning, go over their house, knock on the door, and straighten them out. And you're going, how did something get so messed up so quick with a person I love or I care about? Isn't that a bummer? And you can't just say, well, the devil made me do it. Okay, which he does. But more importantly, it's, you know, the devil, you know, we won't go into that now, but, you know, we're tempted and carried away when we're enticed by our own lust. What that says is that God doesn't tempt us. You know, we're tempted by our own stuff. Okay? There may be a girl walk by or something, but, you know, and I may lust for or whatever, but, you know, God may have allowed that girl to walk through my life, but it's my own sinful, fleshly, twisted, sexual, perverted ways or whatever that cause me to be tempted. You know, it's something in me that's been undealt with. That's unresolved. It's an area of my life. And so we're going to have these kinds of things. How many ever heard something where you make a 10-cent statement towards somebody? Next thing you know, you get a $10 reaction. Or they make a 10-cent statement to you, not meaning nothing. Next thing you know, you give them a $10 reaction, and you're letting them have it, and they're like over here going, what did I say? What did I do? And anybody ever been married to somebody like that? Maybe married to somebody like that right now, you know? But it ain't just in that. It's in all walks of life, isn't it? And it's a shame. Here we are in the name of Jesus, speaking in tongues one moment, hallelujah, worship the Lord over here, and minister doing all this, and next thing I know, somebody gives me a little 10-step statement. Next thing I know, I'm reacting $10, and I'm throwing up on them, and I'm ready to pound and pounce on them, and they're just saying, excuse me, let me just get out of here. I know nobody knows nothing about that, right? People do that to you, don't they? Yes. But then the sad thing is we do it to them also. We're all this mess. But we've got to learn how to deal with things in a healthy way. So what's really going on? Like I say, this, you know, you may make a 10-cent statement, and this person gives you a $10 reaction. They react to you in the flesh, and next thing you know, you respond back to them in the flesh, and flesh on flesh gets flesh, and next thing we know, we got World War III, don't we? What's really going on with that? Well, you know, the first thing we normally do is we're focused on them. We get on the phone and say, boy, you should have heard what such and such did to me today. Boy, you know, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to recruit somebody to feel sorry for herself to join us in our rebellion. Rebellion loves to recruit. Offense loves to recruit. It's just human nature. We all do it. But it's not good. It's not healthy. Matter of fact, you're bringing them in to take up your offense. And now instead of a peacemaker, you're a troublemaker. Okay? And so here we're focused on them, and we're replaying the tapes, and, you know, here, you know, and what's really going on is that what's really happening is instead of looking at yourself, you've got to realize there's different fears, pride, self-righteousness, ego, arrogance, insecurities. And if you were to really get honest, the reason, you know, or maybe they talk to you with a 10-cent statement, and you give them a $10 reaction, and here you know So if you're spiritual enough, you'll catch yourself. How many of you have been in reaction and you know that you know you're in reaction, but you just can't seem to get out of that reaction? You're hooked. That's what we call being hooked. You walk around 3 days in reaction and you know you're in reaction, you know it's flesh, but you just don't know what's going on, and you're praying, you're searching, you're on your knees, you're begging God, and it doesn't get any better. And so what's really happening is this person has said something to you and something's been triggered and you're reacting. You know, you're coming off with anger and saying things and spewing out, and basically you're throwing up all over this person. And so when it happens, you got a choice. You can either continue to blame it on them, or you can stop, turn it back on you, and you can learn to say what's really going on, and it's what we call take ownership. And this is where working your program comes, your daily moral inventory and your journaling. Lord, yesterday, boy, I had a World War III with my guy in room number 7 over there at Liberty Lodge, and we haven't spoke. We sat here at breakfast this morning and didn't say a word, and we passed each other at work, and and it's been 2 days, we haven't said a word to each other, and isn't that happen sometime? Can't imagine what it'd be like being married and be in that situation. So you're at a Mexican standoff. Somebody's got to do something. Somebody's got to be the bigger person. Someone has to step in. Someone has to say, hey, I'm going to take the lead and cause this thing. And hopefully both people will be spiritual enough to go and say, Lord, okay, whatever. They may be 90% wrong or whatever they did, but what about me? What did I do wrong? How could I handle it better? What do I need to show me? And we get into our closet and we do an examination and an analysis and get our journal out, and we get through it, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, God says, okay, well, you did this, and things settle down, the dust settles, and you get out of a reaction, and next thing you know, you settle down, and next thing you know, you're hearing God, and you're going, oh, okay. Then you repent, you take ownership of it, and then hopefully you're big enough to go back the next day and say, hey, brother, can we sit down and talk? Can we come over here? Things didn't go so good, and blah, 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 but I love you, I care about you, I want to do better, and and take ownership and say, I don't know what you feel, but this is what I did, and this is what I need to do, and hopefully they'll say, oh, well, I did this and this, and that's conflict resolution, dealing with things in a healthy way. That's the way it has to be done. Now, some people you just can't, and don't get me wrong, but as far as it be with us, we need to be at peace with all men. So turn with me to James 1:19 through 20. James talks about, I just love James because, man, he just gives you some stuff. James gives you some tools, man. He gives you something practical. He doesn't just throw something out there and drop a bomb on you, leave you hanging. No, James is real, man. This guy here is just loaded with stuff. James 1:19, right out of the gate, he starts talking about getting in reaction. And he says, this you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of God does not achieve the righteousness of God, or when you get angry, it never does it promote the building up of the kingdom of God. Never, it's a lose-lose situation. So James says, this you know. He's preaching and saying, you guys already know this stuff. Assuming. And you'd think that we would know these things, but maybe we not, because if we do, we soon forget them, don't we? Or we're not practicing them. So tonight we're going to go and assume that we don't know, but there's some things we need to know that we know to know. The word know here is the word oida. It's our word to have seen something, to perceive it, or to have learned it, understood it, or recognized it fully. So we need to, so let's just say this you should know. Let's just change it for a minute here, and bear with me. This we should know. We should have learned this by now. We've been in Christian life long enough to know that conflicts happen, and we got to, God's a relational person. We got to deal with it. So he says, everyone, young, old, mature, immature, black, white, whatever, everyone, all inclusive, must be quick to hear. Amplified says everyone must be quick to be a ready listener. One of the problems when you're offended is about that time that pride starts coming up and you're starting to see red. About the time it gets right here, you don't quit listening, hadn't you? Now you're trying to win, aren't you? Okay? Your pride's gotten so up that now it's not about the relationship and result. Now it's about winning. Now it's about you. And when that's on, that game's on, it's over. You might as well, because this is going to get ugly. So if you're spiritually mature, you got to learn how to withdraw, pull away, and get up out of there and go get spiritual. So everybody must be a ready listener. That means you got to truly care and really, when you're in reaction, you got to stop and really start working the tools of learning to listen to what that person's saying. Not their attitude or their response. There's no reason you have to take it personal. If you're taking it personal, then it's pride. I mean, it's impossible to offend a humble person. A person that's truly humble will never get in reaction. So whenever you're in reaction and you're in the flesh, then it's pride. You've got some measurement, even if it's just 10%, you've got something to look at. If you feel that thing coming up in you whatsoever, then that tells you right there that you've got something you need to be working on. Something's being flushed up. Something's being triggered. Somebody's got behind your armor and they pushed a button that's an unresolved issue that you've never dealt with, and most likely it's pride or insecurity or fear. And it's an indication that you got some work to do. So everybody must be quick to really stop, catch yourself, and learn to listen. And then be slow to speak, slow to anger. The Amplified says everybody needs to understand this. Everybody needs to be a ready listener and slow to speak or slow to take offense and to get angry. For man's anger does not promote the righteousness of God. Nobody wins. So everybody must learn to be slow to speak, slow to take offense, slow to get angry, or slow to get into reaction. You got to learn to catch yourself. You got to learn to keep your composure. You got to learn to work your program, do some tools. You can't worry about them. You got to worry about yourself. We have to be slow to lose our composure, to get bent or wrapped around the axle, to get hooked or triggered. Jesus was a man that never took offense. 1 Peter 2:23 says, and while being reviled or insulted or treated offensively, he did not revile or return. While suffering, he uttered no threats, but kept entrusting himself to God who judges righteously. Jesus was lied about and spat upon and abused and insulted and treated offensively. Here's God. He could have called down angels and smoke and called down fire and took care of them all. But he said he knew the nature of man. He knew what was in man. And he was a relational person. So he knew his overreacting to situations wasn't going to help. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is not going to work. This is why he said, if your brother takes your coat, or takes your, what does that say? If he gives you your coat, let him have your whole wardrobe. How's that? Go the extra mile. Be the bigger person. Why not rather be offended? Why not rather be defrauded? Why not be wrong? Why not be the bigger person? Why not just let it go? Jesus was offended, but he never took up offense. He had every reason to overreact and respond, but he never did. He kept his composure. He was cool as a cucumber. He had true humility. He acted as to who he was, nothing more, nothing less. He didn't apologize for who he was. He said what he needed to say, and he turned it over to God and said, let God handle it. And this is why he goes on later in Matthew and says, hey, man, learn from me. I'm meek. Learn from me. If you're carrying a burden and you're overworked or whatever, learn from me. Learn meekness and learn gentleness. He said, because that's who I am. Ephesians 4:26-27 says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and never give the devil an opportunity. When we let our anger get the best of ourselves, we open a doorway for the devil to come in and take advantage of every situation. When you're in the flesh and your reaction, you become a problem maker rather than a peacemaker, a troublemaker. So we're going to get angry, okay? I like this. What it says is, it says it's okay. You get angry, but don't let anger get the best of you. When you get angry, don't lose your composure. Don't get in reaction. Step away from it. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. Some people say, well, I'm just emotional. This is where I am. Like it's okay. I mean, I never understood that. You know? Some people say, women we're just emotional and that's the way we are. And let me tell you, man, us men are just as emotional in some ways. Okay? But it's never okay to overreact. It's never okay to be in the flesh, because when we're in the flesh, it's sin. That's all there is to it. It's not okay for you to just throw up somebody and say, okay, well, you know, that's just the way I am. And then you walk away like everything's okay, and then you just dropped a bomb on them and hurt them and said things and done things, and you walk away like you expect them to just, like it's okay. No, it's not okay. It's never okay to lose our composure. Proverbs 16:32. Solomon's talking about, he says, that person who is slow to anger, or slow to take offense, or slow to get in reaction, is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who captures a city. What that says right here, that the person that is slow to anger is better, is mightier, bigger, or better, or more impressive, or more mature, or more prosperous, or actually more significant than someone who accomplishes all kinds of mighty things externally. He who rules his own spirit, where rule means to reign or to master, to dictate, is better than a person, a mighty warrior that goes out and conquers city after city after city. So what it says right here is that a person that rules his spirit, that he dictates to the flesh. He doesn't allow the flesh to get he dictates. He doesn't allow the flesh to dictate to him. He masters. He doesn't allow flesh to master him. You know, he's the head and not the tail. That person that has dominion and has learned, and you have to learn it, that person has learned to have an inward disposition. And the word is meekness, and we're going to talk about this probably in a couple of weeks. Meekness is the character quality to be able to handle every situation exactly the way you need to stay cool as a cucumber. The word means to be God-controlled. It means to have a harnessed strength. That means in the heat of the moment, that person that has an anger and a stress, but he's learned to obey the reins. He's learned to take and harness that flesh and make it a slave. Not let it rule him, not let it dictate him. That means he keeps his foot on it. It wants to squiggle and jump up around, but no, he keeps his foot right on it. And that's the way the flesh is. It's always going to be, but you got to keep your foot on it. Instead of letting the flesh dictate and master, control, and ruin your life, and you just throw up and do all this stuff. Now you've got it. So it says better than a man that takes care of the internal is much more significant in God's kingdom, much more valuable than a guy that goes out and conquers all kinds of cities and buys up real estate and conquers all these things externally in the world. But according to Solomon, the person that's mightier, more impressive in God's eyes is the guy, the guy that really impresses God is the guy that rules his spirit. He keeps cool, man. Have you ever seen somebody like that? I hate people like that. People were sitting there cussing at them and abusing them, and they're just like, what was that guy, Dennis the Menace, that just floated through life, that bombs going off everywhere? Y'all don't remember him, he's too old. But anyway, it's those kind of people that they're amazing. I just think it's amazing. So it's better to listen to what the Passion Version says. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the Passion. Don't use it as the main Bible, but it's a cool little resource on the side that says, respond gently. No, that's not what it said. It says, do you want to be a mighty warrior? It is better to be known as one who is patient and slow to anger. Do you want to conquer a city? Then rule over your temper before you attempt to rule a city. So better is the one that conquers his inner demons, his inner struggles, than he who conquers things out there. Have you ever seen somebody that does all these wonderful things? They're intelligent, they're well educated, doing all these things, but as soon as they don't get their way, the next thing you know, this person that's gifted, next thing you know, they're acting like a little kid, throwing a temper tantrum, rude as can be. Have you ever seen people like that? You see that other side of them. You know, the real, what's in the well comes up in that bucket, doesn't it? When you, okay? Now in Proverbs 15:1, we're going to talk about how to respond in a healthy way. Now I'm ready to preach my sermon. Got 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Anyway, let's go there. Proverbs 51. This is how it works. It says, a gentle or a soft answer or response turns away a person's wrath or anger, but a harsh word stirs up anger or escalates it. A gentle, soft response to a person that's in the flesh will de-escalate a situation, but a harsh word in the flesh will stir it up and escalate it and make it even really worse. Passion says, respond gently when you are confronted and you will diffuse the rage of another person. Responding with sharp, cutting words will only make it worse. Don't you know that being angry can ruin the testimony of the why? How many have ever ruined your testimony? And I have to admit it, man, there's sometimes, man, here I've been a pastor for 20 years, worked on me, and next thing I know, I'm in an unguarded moment in a situation. Next thing I know, I've acted and I'm going, you just want to quit. You want to throw in the towel. You just go, man, but you know what? It is what it is. That's me. And I can get bummed out, or I can just go to the prayer closet and I can get better. So what this basically says is, so here we got this person, and we've got an unguarded moment. Conflict just happens. Here, this person responds to me in the flesh. I may have said a little something, or he's just coming down in reaction, and I don't even know why he's in reaction, or I don't know why he's upset. It's just, we've had that happen before, haven't we? It's like, hold, just tell me what I did wrong first, okay? But anyway, this person's coming at you, man, and they're in reaction, they're in the flesh. Now you got a choice. You can respond back. They're coming at you in the flesh. And so now you've got a choice, and now of how you can either respond or react. So now this person reacts to you in the flesh, and now you react back to them in the flesh, and next thing you know, you got World War III, don't you? And you wonder, how did something get so ugly so fast? But I can choose to respond in the Spirit. He comes at me in the flesh and I respond to him in the Spirit. That means I take ownership of me. I settle down, I cool down, I get out of reaction, I do the little 5-second rule. This is a good one to remember. When you feel that thing coming on, you don't have a lot of time, but if you could just take 5 seconds and just say 1, 2, praying at that moment, because you don't got a lot. You know this. You know the game's on. Okay, you recognize it. Yeah. You know it, and so you've got a choice. That's when you got to make the choice. So that 5 seconds sometimes can allow you just enough to turn to the Lord inwardly. Bring the Lord in and say, Lord, I'm about ready to blow it. I'm about ready to smack him. I'm ready to knock your head off. It's the game's getting ready to go on. God, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. But the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. It doesn't do any good. Nobody's going to win in this thing. James says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you at the proper time. So when you feel that game going on, this is where you got to stop, turn inwardly, and say, I humble myself, I humble myself, I humble myself. I clothe myself with humility. I put on your righteousness, God. I can't do this on my own. My flesh is coming. The game's on, Lord. Help me, help me, help me. And you bring God into it and you just humble yourself. God is opposed to that proud, but He gives grace. When you humble yourself, He gives you a grace to be able to respond. Are y'all with me? Yeah. When you bring God into it, you can't do this on your own. So next thing you know, you respond to them in the Spirit and they're like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that kind of response. I was wanting to fight. So what do they got to do now? Huh? They can't do anything but go over here and look at themselves because you responded in the Spirit. You're like, hey, brother, I don't know what happened. I don't know what upset you, but I care about you. Let's get this thing right. Let's talk about it. Let's go over here and let's work it out. And, let's be a peacemaker. And I care about you and be of peace. As far as to be with me, I want to be at peace. So how can I handle this better? And I humble myself. Then they can't blame me no more. They may still be mad at me for something, but that soft response or action will cause them to have to look at themselves. The bombshell theory, put that up there real quick. We're going to go over this probably next week and talk all about this bombshell thing. But the bombshell theory says, I cannot change this person by direct action. However, I can change myself. And as I change myself, others have a tendency to change in reaction to my change. This is amazing. I can't control or be responsible for what that person does to me, but I can control my action. Just because they're reacting doesn't mean I have to react. I've still got a choice to decide whether I want to respond or I want to react. I have a choice. No one can dictate. I don't care how ugly or how nasty they are. There's no reason for me to go tooth for tooth or eye for eye. There's no reason for me to revile back or treat offensively or me to throw up. I don't have to take it personal. So what this says right here is if I'll step away, humble myself under the mighty hand of God when this thing goes on and catch myself and respond back, then this person has nothing to do but go back and take care of themselves. Galatians 6:1 says, Brethren, if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such one in the spirit of gentleness, each one looking to yourself, so that you may also be tempted. We're going to hammer this one out in a few weeks, but what it says right there is that let's just apply it in a practical way. It says that if a brother is in reaction to you, or you're in reaction to whatever, it says you who are spiritual, restore the person. That means to reset the broken bone. We talk about this in church, or to mend the net. It means to restore something back to its original position. The goal of God is a ministry of reconciliation. He wants to restore the relationship. So on your end, your job is to restore this relationship, to resolve it. And hopefully their job is to do the same thing. And if they are and they're both spiritual, then you should be able to come back and say, whatever, let's talk it out, let's reason from it, let's go forward. Now sometimes you never confront somebody when you're in reaction, when you're in the flesh. You got to cool down. You got to become spiritual. It doesn't say you who are in the flesh go straighten them out and fix them. Big Ryan might be right here and being reacting to me, and my flesh might want to react and get in a fight with him, but that wouldn't be a good idea, probably for me anyways. I can't do anything about him, but I can, if it gets too heated, then I just need to say, look, let's just take a break here. I don't know what happened, but I'm not in a good spot. And this is when we're able to get away and get our mirror out, aren't we? Okay? Instead of blaming them and being focused on them and trying to working their inventory, I need to just step away. I need to go over here and I need to examine myself and say, what is my pride? What are my insecurities? What are my fears? Why am I in reaction? What's going on with me? I need to get the log out of my eye before I go try to take the splinter out of that other person's eye. Then I'll be able to see clearly. Then I'll be spiritual. Then I will have took ownership of my issues, and now I can go back and say, brother, can we sit down and talk today and have a coffee and let's meet, and then we can sit down and let's talk about this thing, and in a better way. And when we do it like that, everybody wins, right? Okay, so how are you doing? Next week we're going to talk about the bombshell theory and give you some more practical tools on how to respond versus react so that the kingdom of God advances. Amen? Amen.